hmm
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 22 of It's Kind of Late with Sarah and Lisa.
Sarah, we're working. We're not at a conference yet.
Oh, geez. Oh, my gosh. I completely forgot. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Health Ed Students Love Activities, our session for the 2020 Iowa AFERD Virtual Convention. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, yeah. Here we are. Here we are. You know us probably because we've been to your convention a bunch of times. We're Lisa and Sarah.
Hey.
Hey,
So,
so
I'm going to get us kicked off here. My name is Sarah Gietschier-Hartman. I teach high school health and physical education at Clayton High School, which is located in a suburb of St. Louis, Missouri.
and I'm Lisa Smith. I teach at Lakeville South High School in Lakeville, Minnesota, which is just south of Minneapolis, St. Paul, just north of you guys. They're in Iowa.
So today we are going to be teaching you all of our different favorite activities that we use in our health classes. So Lisa and I both had to make recent transitions within our teaching worlds, and we both transitioned back into the health classroom after being out of the health classroom for a number of years. And so one of the things that we were really looking forward to exploring when we got back in the health classroom was finding tons of different health activities. And we know that all of us are going to be working under really unique circumstances this year, whether we're teaching in person, online, or somewhere in between. So today we're going to share 10 of our favorite health activities so that you can add them to your teaching toolbox and be more prepared for this fall.
On top of these activities, most of them can be done either in person or virtual. We've tested them kind of both ways. So that's what's really cool about them. And like always, feel free to make them your own.
And we know that there are a lot of uncertainties about this fall, but one thing that's for certain is that it's really awesome that you're dedicating some of your time this summer to make your craft even better as a teacher, to be professionally developed, and to be here for this conference. So thank you. All right, let's start it off, Lisa.
All righty.
Okay, so activity number 1 is wellness wheels. So wellness wheel day in my health classes is actually the best day of the year. And when my students walk into the classroom, I have the lights really dim. I have this really colorful graphic projected on the screen that's beautiful with some instructions. And I just guide my kids and tell them to go read the screen and follow the steps that are up on the board. And what it's encouraging them to do is to just place their backpacks in the front of the room and then read a half sheet of paper that's on their tables. But their tables look a little bit different when they walk in. They're covered in black tablecloths. There are cups of water. There are watercolor paints out. And every single kid, these are high school sophomores, every single one says, "Oh, are we painting today? Miss Jeets, we're painting today?" And they get so excited. So a wellness wheel is a helpful tool for understanding how to create more balance in difficult areas of your life. It's a visual representation of a person's overall health. So for the activity, my students rank their level of satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10 with 8 different areas of their lives. For example, how their social life is doing, their physical life, recreation and their hobbies, maybe even the nutritional aspects of their lives. And then they paint the spaces on the wheels to match their different rankings. So once they're done painting, which takes about the entire class period, they come in for another class and they fill out a reflection form that takes them through a series of questions that gives them the opportunity to really unpack their wheel. And one of the best questions that I ask within this assignment is, if you were to just look at the painted parts of your wheel, would your wheel roll smoothly? Or would it not? Would it maybe kind of roll kind of jagged and get stuck? And then they start to identify the different parts of their lives that they might be able to improve upon, and they reflect on those things as well. Now, the one thing that we haven't told you about yet is at the bottom of every single slide is a tiny URL that you can type into your browser anytime you want. And it not only will it give you access to the list of activities that we're providing you, it'll also give you access to all of these assignments. So if you're wanting this super cool wellness wheel template, if you're wanting to know what my awesome presentation looks like when my students walk in the room, if you want to see the half sheet that they read when they walk into the room, for example, all of those things are going to be there for you. And this tiny URL is at the bottom of every single slide. So feel free to just take a photo, and then you don't really have to take notes during this session.
I mean, could it be any easier? No, no, it couldn't. And this will be a live document for you guys to fall back on anytime, but make sure that you save it somewhere safe because it's full of gold.
At least we think so, right?
Wow, that's true. We're a little slightly biased. Next up, mood tracking chart. So this kind of is a little bit of a build off of what Sarah was talking about with her wellness wheel. This is something that you can use with your students. And this is actually was Sarah's idea. So I took it and changed it a little bit. Which we do a lot of because that's what we should be doing a lot of that. Collaboration, right? Give it all out. So this is to help students really kind of make sense of what their days look like. So it does take a little bit of work on their part, kind of reminding themselves to jot down how they're feeling throughout the day. In any given week, you can ask your students to do this. So if you're kind of going, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be in a mental health or kind of wellness type unit. It could be any time to help students really give themselves a good handle on what's going on. Or if you have a student that you're working through something with and they're really struggling with their day-to-day life, like you could ask them, hey, why don't you do this for a little bit and see what you can find out and we can talk about it. So what it asks the students to do is to take I chose a 5-day period of time to cover because, school comes with so many different challenges and struggles. So we broke the school day into threes. So they do have to jot something down during the day. And you can do this either online or you could color. You get your color on if you want, or they could kind of jot it down in a list. But it allows students to do that. So checking first, third, and sixth period, 5 p.m., when they get home from either a practice or maybe around dinner time, and then before bed and what their moods are. And so over there in the emotions key, it kind of plays a little bit off of the give me the
wellness wheel.
Nope. Give me the Pixar movie.
Oh, Inside Out.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Inside Out. It goes off of that a little bit with the emotions key because there were so many different emotions that my students were saying they were feeling, but then they could categorize them into joy, sadness, physical fear, and anger is kind of the ones we chose. And my students had a lot of say in this, and they really thought that was neat to be able to resonate and put that connection between the movie that they had seen before. And also you assign a color to that. So you do have that color representation and the visual piece, just like the wellness wheel, to see, where are you seeing trends that could possibly be triggers or patterns where you could make changes, hopefully to change that for yourself. So students did this in my class and they had a phenomenal time reflecting on it. The reflection questions are underneath there for you to do with your students afterwards, after they've collected that 5 days worth of mood data for themselves. And it's something that I've had students say like, oh, I fall back on that again. And I've done that because I needed to see where I was struggling, or why am I always feeling horrible after fourth period? And, then digging more deeper into that and what kind of triggers there are, and you can have, go deeper into that. So this is a really good thing for that. Okay.
All right. Activity number 3. So my school is fortunate enough to be located next to a really small, high-end boutique grocery store market. Bougie. And I know that it's very bougie, and I know that not everybody has access to that. But my students are fortunate enough to be able to walk there during the class period and can complete an assignment and get back before the class period is even over. And it's approved as a in-class field trip, which is really awesome. We don't have to get buses, permission slips, or anything. We just have to get permission from the principal. So we walk over to the grocery store, and we typically do this during our nutrition unit. And our students are tasked with pretending to buy groceries to make a simple, healthful dinner for a family of 4. The dinner has to follow Michael Pollan's food rules and cost no more than $18. If you're not familiar with Michael Pollan's work, Michael Pollan is a journalist and he is a researcher. He has written a lot of books. He's been in documentaries, and he's also written a lot for like the New Yorker and the New York Times. And his food rules are really simple. It is eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And we teach our students those 7 words throughout our nutrition unit and kind of reinforce them as we go along. So our students, after learning all of this content, they go to the grocery store and they walk around the store and explore for about 20 to 25 minutes. And they try to find things that would fit into the rules and would also feed a family of 4, and then they build their meal. On a separate class period, we come back and the students fill out a reflection sheet where they list all the different foods. A lot of them, as you can see a picture of my student in this photo, take photos of what they have found. They share those as well. And then they kind of explain what they were going to cook and why. It's really interesting because as I circulate throughout the store to support my students, it's really clear and you can really tell which students have experience going to a grocery store and whose families have kind of taught their students where to go in a store and how to prepare a meal. It's also really interesting to see portion sizes. So some students buy like 3 heads of lettuce to make a salad for a family of 4, which is obviously way too much lettuce. So it also gives them a lot of perspective and just some new experiences that maybe they don't have. Now, if you don't have a bougie grocery store next to your school like I do that you can get to in one class period, that's no problem at all. Many of us aren't going to be taking students to grocery stores or on any field trips this year anyway. So you could have your students pretend to order groceries online through grocers like national chains like Aldi, Target, and Walmart. Just make sure that you explore those options first, because some of them do require you to create some accounts with like Instacart and things, and your student and your community might not be comfortable with that. So it just depends on what works for your school.
I did a similar assignment like this, and we did an online piece, and it was just really slick, and students the conversations that they have are really, really awesome together, and coming up with the recipes that they are going to make to feed their family of 4 is really cool, because they think back like, what does my mom make me, and what's in this? And so then they're looking up recipes, and then they're looking up all these other things. So it's really cool to hear them talk about that while exploring.
Yeah, and we've also taught our students some of the tricks about grocery stores, about how like the produce is on the outer edges. It's usually right when you walk in. Dairy's in the back corner, and that also has to do with just the trucks unloading and keeping those things fresh. We talk about how the most expensive things are usually at eye level, and that cheaper options are usually at the top or the bottom of the shelves. And the students talk about that stuff in their reflections. They're like, oh my gosh, it's totally right. I saved money by getting, the rice that was on the bottom shelf as opposed to the one that the store was trying to sell me. And we know that because it's a boutique grocery store, the prices aren't necessarily the same that you would find at a regular grocery store. But as long as you explain that to your students, they can adjust pretty well.
Absolutely. It is a really fun activity. All right. Building off of nutrition, we've got something called the food package investigation. So in this activity, you can you can do it either before or after the grocery shopping challenge. Either way, whatever works for you. But students really get an idea of what it is, like consumerism is, and what nutritionism is. And this is not going way beyond food labels. So hopefully students have had, before they get to your class, some experience looking at food labels, and we're looking at the nutrition facts and all of that. That's not what this is. This is actually looking at the food packaging and helping them look at being really good consumers in the food market. And like Sarah was talking about, how the different pieces are set up, or the departments are set up in the grocery stores. Also, what they're looking at on the food package is so important. So health claims, influences that the companies are trying to put upon them, and helping them discern what is actually true, what is just kind of getting you to buy something. And all those different buzzwords like gluten-free and non-GMO, and what do all those things mean? And is that important to know? Is that something that they and so they can dive into all those different food claims, and with everything that they're looking at with the packaging. So if you can, my recommendation is to start building your own little grocery store with your food packages at home. So as you finish things, or like be careful opening them and shutting them so that you can reseal them later to bring to school. and create your own grocery store for students to be able to go through that and go through I'm going to show you in a second what the actual outline looks like for students to go through. But this picture right here is actually of Sarah's small grocery store that she's building at her school. So that's awesome. And then over here is just a pantry, because you could also have students go home and do this with their foods at home to do that. But you could be a little bit more intentional with your choices if you could do this this way. You could also kind of create like a virtual grocery store, if you will, maybe on some slides or something, where you have to take the time to find pictures of packaging and give that to your students. So that would be a way to do that digitally here coming up, if that's what platform you're using. But
yeah, so Lisa, while you go and show the next picture, let me explain something. So
sure.
with Michael Pollan's work, the book that I would encourage you to read is called In Defense of Food, that he wrote. And he has a lot of different books, but that's like a great place to start, where you can really beef up your nutrition curriculum. And what we're finding, right, is students don't want to know about calories. They don't need to know about the various nutrients, and we don't even necessarily need to teach them of what's healthy versus not healthy. Instead, the concept that we try to teach our students is it a real food, right? Does it come from the ground?
Yep.
Will it eventually rot? Or is it what Michael Pollan affectionately calls an edible food-like substance?
Mm-hmm.
Something that is ultra processed, something that isn't going to rot, something that he also says in grocery stores, it kind of yells at you. Things that are packaged, right? If you go into the produce section, Michael Pollan says that the fruits and vegetables are completely quiet. For the most part, right? They don't say anything to you. The labels aren't screaming at you. It's just a bunch of bananas, right? It's just a bunch of grapes kind of sitting there. If you walk down the cereal aisle, it is screaming at you. The labels are in your face. The claims on those boxes are in your face, trying to get you to grab them.
Heart healthy,
right? And
cholesterol friendly,
right? Or vitamins and minerals.
Mm-hmm.
I think all the different varieties of Cheerios are like the biggest example of nutritionism, which is trying to sell something based on what is in or not in a product, as opposed to just identifying if it's a real food or not. Right. So this is what the assignment looks like, and Lisa can kind of go over that.
Absolutely. So what I did was I printed these back to front. So there were 4 on one page. And so they're going to talk about the food that they chose to investigate. They're going to write down all the health claims that they're seeing. They'll take a peek at the ingredients to see like how many, because we know like the more ingredients that are in there, the crazier things can get, right? And preservatives and all of that, and understanding like what are these things that are in there. So they get to kind of take a little peek at that. What ingredients are unpronounceable and unfamiliar, that have 27 letters in them, and what is this even for? Helping students understand all the different things that products that all the different ingredients products have to include for shelf life and whatnot. My favorite question though is, would your grandmother recognize this product? I like that question, because some students really think about that. They're like, what does that mean? Like, think about it. Would they recognize it? Would it be something that they would recognize as food, or more so just, something on a shelf that doesn't look like food? So it's a great question. And then the other claims that Sarah discussed earlier about rotting and all of that. I mean, that's something that goes back to, my students talk about fast food and all the different things that they've seen in the media and everything about how long pieces of fast food can actually just sit and be and just not rot and not get gross. And so that strikes up a lot of really great conversations that way, and just increasing their awareness on nutrition and what that looks like for their bodies. So I do recommend that. This is right down there in that tiny URL, so you can take a peek at it and do what you will with it. You want to go number 5?
Yeah, number 5 is vaping memes. So my students go through an e-cigarette unit, because as you know, it's another pandemic that we've got going on. And my school resource officer actually gives me any vape pens or other products that he confiscates from students, so that I can safely use them in my health classes, which is kind of cool. And so one of the days I had a vape pen in my pants pocket, And I pulled it out to like show it during class. And my class just erupted with laughter. And I was like, what's going on? And they're just like, Miss Cheese, you just like whipped out a vape pen in the middle of class. And I'm like, and I told them how it came from the school resource officer and everything. It was just, that was a convenient place to keep it, where I wouldn't lose it, where students wouldn't see it, that kind of a thing. But I didn't realize how funny it was when I actually, pulled it out and showed it to the class. And so they just thought that was absolutely hysterical. So as part of that unit, I introduced this vaping memes assignment. And so my students had to create 3 memes using information that we learned in class about e-cigarettes. And then their memes had to either promote the benefits of being e-cigarette free, or they had to reveal the truth behind vaping. And most of my students created their designs in Google Slides. Some of them chose to use apps on their phones. And then we actually had each student pick their favorite meme that they created, and they displayed it on their desk, and then we did a class vote to determine which one was the best one. Now, fast forward to the end of the assignment, and one of my students actually created a meme about me because of the vape pen that I had pulled out of my pocket. And so he compared me to using the Flex Seal tape. And I guess the kids just thought this meme was amazing. It's printed in my classroom. They all talk about it when they walk in. I don't 100% get it, but that's not the point, right? Like, I chose a meme assignment because it's really relatable to my students, and it's something that they really enjoy. So if Lisa, go to the next slide. This is what the actual assignment looks like for my students. So it has the directions for the assignment. It has the 4 things that I encourage them to include and how they need to navigate it. Of course, it has actual memes on it, which I normally don't use in my teaching. I normally don't, but this is like a perfect time to add in that extra humor. And then there's a rubric as well. This resource is in the document, so feel free to make a copy of it and adjust it however you see fit.
I love it. I love it. Activity number 6. So in this particular example of an activity, I'm choosing to show you what I did with PSAs. Okay, so public service announcements. We're very, well versed in those here in the health world because they work. They do work for the most part. So in this particular situation, I used it with mental health disorders for my students. And this was actually last spring during distance learning. So students had a lot of choice in their platforms that they used to create their PSA, and because they did work independently. Some of them did team up, but it worked best for them to work independently on this. But you could use this template that I've created. It's down in the documents. You can click on that. It's really long, and it's an outline for your students to follow, and where you can kind of work with them and give them feedback within that document, or they could work with their peers. But what this does is it's just, it's the general PSA piece, but giving your students that opportunity to be really creative, and they can use Flipgrid, they can use screencast, they can use, if they really just are kind of not wanting to be in the forefront of it, they could create a slides presentation, they can make a video, they could do all of that, but all the different components are listed in there of what would make for a proper PSA. And in this particular PSA, we're talking about stigmas as well, because what I was hoping for was that these PSAs would go out to their peers and their teachers and their parents and the community, so that we could bring more, awareness to mental health, because we all know how important that is. And giving these kids the opportunity to have a voice and to say, nope, I'm here, we're going to reduce these stigmas, and here's how we're going to do it through education and through educating our peers, was a really powerful thing. And the students really took a really strong standpoint on this, and it's important to let them do that from time to time. So you could use this in whatever platform you think is appropriate for your classes, but giving them the opportunity to find a platform is important. So check down there on that document to really look through it. It is a kind of a beast, so I'm going to let you go through that on your own time, and if you do have any questions, by all means, you'll get my contact here at the end.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Activity number 7 is a March Madness tournament. And I think we need to let everybody know that most of these activities are not original to us. They are activities that we've been fortunate enough to get from other sessions that we've attended, that we've tweaked, or we've seen other things. And so I first learned about having a March Madness tournament in class from Matt Pomeroy, who teaches health and physical education in Wisconsin. But then I noticed that Andy Milne was talking about tournaments online, and his wife, who teaches biology in the Chicago area, was using tournaments. And then I saw that a bunch of other English teachers on Twitter were using tournaments. So this is something that's becoming more widely used and is a really cool way to kick off class each day during a unit or when you're trying to focus on a specific topic. So you create a tournament. I suggest doing one with 16 items, right? 16 teams, and starting off with the Sweet 16. And then you create a Google form, and students cast their vote each day when they walk into the room, using that Google form to determine an overall winner for your classroom. I tried doing this class by class once. I don't think I'll ever do that again. I think letting each class vote individually, but then combining those votes into a classroom space winner makes a lot more sense. So an example that I got from Matt and that I've tried with my classes and that I will use again is one that focuses on healthy relationships. So which personality characteristic is the most important trait in a healthy relationship? So examples that you could use as like your 16 teams, right, would be happiness, creativity, respect, honesty, trust, intelligence, a sense of humor. And then you could have your students vote on those things and determine the overall winner. It's just a fun, cool way to get class started. It could also lead to some really cool conversations in class. Definitely can connect to the content that you teach with relationships. And it's kind of the sky's the limit. You could do this for a wide variety of topics and things that you're doing in your classes. In the resource document, I have kind of an overview of how you can lay out your tournament. And then I also have the 16 personality characteristics that I use in my classes just to get you started.
Beautiful. I like it. All right, which brings us to bingo. You guys, do you know what students love almost as much of activities? Choices. You know that. They love choices. Giving them choices is so important, and it gives them that feeling of control, that gives them that, you know, that they're in the driver's seat for their learning, and, you know, they think like, yeah, I'm gonna be the one that chooses all this here. But let's all remember who gives them these choices. It's us. We give them the choices. So we can still, you know, get that same outcome, but they think that they have the control. I love it, right? It works in every grade level, and it still works in high school. Giving them choices that get them to the same destination, but giving them that autonomy to make it their own is so important, because that's life. Like, that's exactly what we're doing here, right? We're giving you all these choices, and you can use them and make them your own. But what we do is bingo. So some of you may have seen this or not in the beginning of distance learning. I rolled out a huge bingo board that kind of for my PE classes that was well received, and a lot of students really enjoyed it. And so you could use bingo or tic-tac-toe if you want to kind of shrink it down and give us fewer choices. That you can do whatever works best for you. And the students really enjoyed it. And you can tack it on to a journaling situation with it, so that you can make sure you get that feedback on what students are doing for their choices, because obviously they're all going to pick whatever makes the most sense for them. And then get that feedback, and you can have those reflection questions or, you know, questions that are tied right into your outcomes or your standards. All of that's in there, and students use those things for you to get that feedback. And here's what a bingo board does look like. This is just one example, and there's a couple more examples down in our document that you can look at, and you can make them your own or expand or change out anything that you'd like to see, but giving them that choice and the autonomy to design their own wellness day, or whatever your unit is. You can kind of go with this anyway. There's so many different ways.
Yeah, this specific bingo card, remember, we were trying to focus on the different dimensions of wellness. So there's
Right.
ones that focus on their social well-being and getting them to interact with others, right? There's some that focus
Mm-hmm.
on their environment, so cooking or straightening up an area in their house. There's some that's physical. And so this was perfect for distance learning,
Mm-hmm.
but you could use it in a wide variety of ways for sure.
Absolutely. And the one that I have, or a couple of the ones that are down there in the document, that one has really specific PE standards in there. So you're asking students to talk a little bit more of strategy and tactic. So if you do have a PE class as well, you can take that. You can take some of those too. I threw those in there just because, let's be honest, having more examples is better than not, right? So they're in there. And then also service learning is some pieces that we've thrown in there too, especially during this time of distance learning and just kind of wanting to help people connect with their communities in a healthy way. That's all in there as well. So you can do anything you want with these. It is really cool to see what the students choose and to see to hear their feedback on the different pieces. So and then the last thing I'll say is I also always say in the instructions for this that if a student gets to one that maybe doesn't work for them for whatever reason, they have the ability to adapt and to change, modify the square for whatever they need it to be. So that's always there as long as it's within reason and it's respectful to the assignment and to the to what's going on in the class. So that's always there, and that's with any assignment. You would hope that students would advocate for themselves to make changes if needed. So
Awesome.
mm-hmm.
All right, activity number 9 is forest bathing. So part of the mental wellness unit at my school includes learning how to connect with nature and using our senses. And my school is located adjacent to a park. It's literally connected to our high school campus and is part of the community. And so we give our students the opportunity to get outside and practice forest bathing, which is also known as Shinrin-yoku in Japan, where I believe this concept came from. So forest bathing involves spending time in nature in a calm and relaxed way. And there's a wide variety of ways that you can do this. You can actually participate in forest bathing workshops where you go out into the woods and there's a facilitator there to help guide you through a series of practices and things to reflect upon and things to think about. But for our students, we just walk over to the park, ask them to space out and just kind of be one with nature, enjoy being out of the building, enjoy having some time to themselves, putting their phones away, not really engaging with each other. And we spend almost the entire class period there, and then we walk back, grab our stuff, and head to our next class. So it's really awesome to just be able to get outside. At first, it takes a little bit of convincing with our students at how cool this is going to be. But then once it's over, they all kind of say like, man, that was so awesome for me to just have a break. And we've seen cool things. We've seen turtles, we've seen birds, we've seen some pedestrians doing some funny things. We've seen little creatures swimming in that lake. That is a picture of my students from last school year. And it's one of the best days of the year that I just really, really look forward to. So even when the weather's a little cruddy, we still try to get out with them if we can. And they're still really appreciative. So I highly encourage you to try forest bathing sometime on your school's campus. You don't have to have a really cool park like I do. You can just use any outdoor space. And as long as you kind of set the tone for the lesson and the purpose, it should be successful.
Love it. So awesome. You're definitely lucky to have that space right here
Yeah,
at
the
your
pictures
school.
that I post on social media look a little fake, but
Amazing.
it's real. Yeah.
You got a sweet grocery store and a pond. It's
Yeah, we're really lucky.
wow. I love it. All right, which brings us to the 10th one. And this one, it may seem super obvious and really like, really, why are you telling me this, guys? Like, this is kind of obvious. Like connection, that's what we do with students is we connect with them. And yeah, that's true. But here's the thing. Like I always say to myself in the beginning of a school year, like I'm gonna connect so hard with my students. It's gonna be amazing. Every day I'm gonna bring something new to the table, a song, a quote, a meme, poem, like something that's relevant to what I'm going over that day with them. And I'm like, I'm good at it, right for a while. And then I'll kind of like, oh shoot, I forgot to do that last week, or just throw that in, and it kind of just like fizzles out. So what I don't know if you're like me, maybe you're not, maybe you're awesome and you do remember to do this every day. But if you're not, I challenge you, and I challenge myself. So that's something that I'm looking forward to doing this school year. Whether, I mean, no matter what way we're in school this year, I'm going to do this for my students, because I think, especially now more than ever, connection is going to be so critical. I mean, we have had, our students and our world has been through so much in the last few months, and it's unpacking all of this is going to be an incredible task for us as health educators. And so I think trying to, set that tone and trying to set that connection where it's a safe space, because how are we supposed to connect with our kids if they're never going to see it, if they, or, well, I don't want to say never, but if they don't see us in person and they don't get to feel our passion and they don't get to feel our vibes. I know that I rely so heavily on that with my students and how I move around the classroom and how I to connect with them. So this is kind of what I'm thinking is going to be, that golden ticket this year as far as connectivity with students, is really making sure that I'm staying up to date on everything current for them, and just giving that time to really connect with them, hook them in the beginning. Don't just get right down to business, but really just let them understand that I'm here with them. We are getting through this together. We're going to learn together, grow together, all of those pieces. And, sometimes it's just a quick little quote where it's just encouraging, like this one right here. Like, we need to be reminded of these things, and so do they. And so whatever capacity we are educating this fall, it's going to be weird, but connection's still going to need to be ever present. So challenging yourself to do this. I'm going to try to like set some ahead of time, but I don't necessarily always like to say, oh, well, what's the next one on my list to give to the kids? Like, I really like to go with how, we're working on what we're working on in class, how our community is feeling. And obviously all those pieces play a big part in that. So I do challenge you to do something like that, to connect with your students, and at the beginning of every class, and let it be known that, we're here.
Yeah, every time I hear a song that I just think would be a cool way to start class, or that I know would pump me up if I'm in my car or whatever, especially with being home all this time, I just add it to a playlist that I have in my phone, and maybe I'll use it and maybe I won't. And then my other newest thing is that when I watch shows on Netflix, I watch them with subtitles. It just helps me stay engaged and stay focused, and helps me hear it a little bit better. But also some shows actually, when there's musical, parts to the show, like sitcoms, they will actually show you what song and artist are playing. And so if I'm like, if that beat was like really cool, I will super quickly write that in my phone, and then I'll look for the song later. And I have found a few just this past week that I'm going to be adding into my classes. So, all right, Lisa, let's get back to our last slide, which is just our contact info. So here's our contact information. Please feel free to email us. Please feel free to send us a tweet. Our contact info is just right here. We would love to hear from you, help you come up with activities, figure out ways that you can modify them to make them work for your learners this fall. And we are so happy that you spent this time with us and spent part of your summer learning with us. So thanks so much for being here for our session.
Any feedback you can give us, or if you do these activities, let us know. We really want to know how you've changed them and how you've done things to them. So, because we're ever learning with you. So, let's just do this together. So, yeah. And if you haven't read Dragons Love Tacos or Dragons Love Tacos Too, you should do it, because they love tacos and they love books just as much as health ed students love activities.
Thanks. See you guys soon.